Fantasy Football Factory Week 12. We got the King of the South, Mintzy. We got Moody on the Sticks. I am Stephen Cheah. We are, as always, brought to you by Draftkings. My partners at Draftkings have a brand new way to play daily fantasy, the Pick 6 app. All new customers who play just $5 are going to get $50 in Pick 6 credits. Download DraftKings Pick 6 app now with promo code FANTASY, FANTASY. It's super easy. You just pick at least 2 players. Choose they'll have more or less of a certain stat. More or less 1.5 passing touchdowns. More or less half interception. More or less 49.5 rushing yards. Pick at least 2 players, and you can lock them into or combine them to lock them in to win and compete against others to win huge cash prizes. Download DraftKings Pick 6 app now with code FANTASY. Only the DraftKings Pick 6 app. The crown is yours. A lot of fantasy news, as always, coming out of the week. Congrats. Major victory lap for you. You've hit a ton of parlays. You made a ton of money on Sunday. You are, as you said, lava hot, and a big cause for that is Taysom Hill.
Yes. So Taysom Hill, man, I feel like I'm going to have to come in with a stat or jersey or something to pay respects to him because Stoolvivor going on. It's the Barstool Touchdown Survivor competition. I took Taysom a few weeks ago. He won me the highest odds that week. Mm-hmm. So I got a free $500 bonus bet, which I went ahead and used on I woke up Sunday morning, and I was going to use Richardson because I thought he was going to run in against the Jets, his first game back. And Richardson's price was plus 225. It went all the way to plus 175, and I was like, well, it'd be fun to win like $850 or $900, but I was like, I never get a shot at big money with a $500 bet, so I'm going to shoot for the moon. And Taysom Hill was plus 190, which was a wild price. And so I parlayed him, and man, I hit it. Taysom scored the first 2 minutes, and Richardson ran it in beginning of the second quarter, and then between them, Richardson ended up having 2, and Taysom had 3. Yeah. But like hit 3,500. And then I hit a couple more. I hit a $10. So they always give a boosted touchdown parlay every week on a $10. And I did Taysom, Josh Allen had that running touchdown late in the Bills-Chiefs. I had Juwan Jennings and Quentin Johnson because I'm looking for the value and odds on it. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm not taking the minus 200s, but 10 to win 800 on that. And then I hit a couple boosts off referrals with Jameson Williams, like over and a touchdown when he caught the 64-yarder. And then I also hit I maxed the under on Steelers-Ravens because of how physical those games usually are. It was high. And I maxed it under 36.5 in Steelers' money line. And what a sweat. I mean, it's 18-16.
Thank you, Justin Tucker.
Yeah, it's 18-16 when the Ravens score at the end of the game with a minute left. And so it all came down to the 2-point conversion, and they stopped them. Yeah. So just clean living. Real hot. Got to keep it going. And Big T and I, heads up in the Stoolvivor. That's going to be electric on the stream Sunday. Apparently, we're flipping a coin to see who gets first pick. Yeah. And we each make a pick in our noon games, and then if we both our guys score or neither of our score, we run it back for the 3 o'clock games. Man, $25K free bet on the line. Wow.
That would be awesome. Taysom Hill, surprisingly, we just looked this up before the show. Surprisingly, half-point PPR, he's tight end 8. I would have thought he would have been a little bit higher, but he missed a couple games. But he's been kind of a force, especially around the end zone. He's been taking wildcat snaps, but he's also been lining up in the backfield and just running it in.
Yeah, no, and then also when you look at the Saints offense, I mean, Hill and Kamara are the only established weapons. And so, the target, he's getting tons of carries. I mean, I was surprised when you looked at it a minute ago that he was only number 8, but he really only has 150 yards receiving this year. His value's been running. Mm-hmm. And but either way, man, I got to say, he's gotten me this far. And I'm going to go ahead and say it. If I do get this free bet, I think I got to ride with my guy. When the Saints play the Rams next Sunday at home, I think that would be who I would be leaning to riding with.
Should be a fun stream on Sunday with you and Big T competing for that. Let's talk about a guy who I was going to try to transition off of Big T. He wears big teal. And that's Jonnu Smith for the Miami Dolphins. Big game, and he's now emerged as like a legitimate fantasy weapon at tight end, underpriced, or I don't want to say underpriced, but this week he is at $4,100, which is totally fair for a guy getting his type of volume. But was it 9 catches, 101 yards?
Yeah, and 2 touchdowns. And the thing too about it is, so Miami hadn't really had a tight end threat the last few years. Yeah. And he's filling a great role in that offense. And when you watch him, it's not just that he's getting the targets, but he's got some explosiveness. He can bust some longer plays, and he's getting a big target share. And so I'm not saying he's going to go 9 for over 102 touchdowns again, but I think he's a play the rest of the year. And then actually, we'll get to the bye week thing in a minute, but I had to make a move that we'll see if I regret, but I actually dropped Dalton Kincaid for Jonnu this week. But Kincaid's had, been hurt and had not a great year. And I've got so many guys out on bye that I was just like, I'm going to just roll with Jonnu the rest of the way, making a gamble.
Yeah, he's been producing. And in that Miami offense, especially Tyreek Hill nursing a wrist injury, but playing through it. Jalen Waddle's been such a disappointment this year. Jonnu Smith has really emerged as a guy. I mean, H.N.'s been very good, especially catching the ball in the backfield. But Jonnu Smith has emerged as a legitimate fantasy weapon. A team that is full of guys who are not fantasy weapons, the New York Jets, fired their GM, Joe Douglas. Not going to say friend of the program, but he has ties to Barstool being good friends with Dave and Todd McShay's best friend. Tough to see him go. He's drafted some really good players, but this whole Aaron Rodgers thing has been an absolute debacle. I don't know how they run this back next year, but for the rest of this season, they're on a bye this week, but for the rest of this season, how are we viewing Jets players? We're looking at Breece Hall, to a much lesser extent, Braylon Allen, Garrett Wilson, Davante Adams, and Aaron Rodgers.
I mean, Breece Hall scored 2 touchdowns last week, and if you've got him, you've already invested so much in him. You're rolling with him no matter what. And plus, he catches the ball too, so he's still got value. Can't start Rodgers. I don't know how you can bench Wilson though. I mean, it's just like it is.
He's been as a Wilson manager on my main team. He has been horrible this year, and he's had flashes. He had that one game where he had like 23 targets, which is awesome. But now, especially with Davante Adams there, the offense hasn't opened up like we had hoped, and it's just a miserable experience week after week.
Yeah, it's bad. No, it's bad. But I guess if you've got great receiver depth, I guess you can bench Wilson. But that's all. You'd probably have to have a lot to have him not be your number 3.
Who would you rather start in a season-long fantasy thing? Would you rather have Jackson Smith and Jigba or Garrett Wilson?
Jackson Smith and Jigba. Because of that Seattle, Rodgers never throws for over 250 yards, and Geno's always chunking it.
I'll give you a better one: Calvin Ridley or Garrett Wilson.
I mean, like this, I feel like this is a loaded question because I would say Wilson, but like you're about to tell me some stats. It's Ridley's better is what's coming.
Calvin Ridley has been very good, especially the last 4 weeks. We'll see if that continues. Will Levis, is a bit of a wild card at quarterback. He's been back for 2 games. He's been pretty good, but we'll see what happens. They tried targeting him a ton early in the year, and I think he had like a 9-target, like 0 or 1 catch game. Like it's been pretty erratic.
Well, DeAndre Hopkins
turned a corner.
Well, Ridley's the WR1 with Hopkins gone.
He was even before Hopkins missed some time in camp and stuff like that, and never really got on the same page. But yeah, it's interesting to see from that end. All right, let's move on to the other New York sports team that is just making a mockery of football. That's the New York Giants benching Daniel Jones. Reports coming out from Jordan Schultz that a lot of teammates not happy with the decision that Daniel Jones being the scapegoat for this start. Dexter Lawrence, who's arguably their best player on defense, coming out and saying that it's kind of BS that Daniel Jones is, being blamed for all this. How do you view this situation? And it's Tommy DeVito now. So this move was made on Tuesday morning, I believe. Fantasy pricing had already come out. Tommy DeVito is now $4,000. Yeah, I mean, we're going to talk about the quarterbacks in a minute, but how do you view him as a fantasy starter in season long, obviously for Superflex leagues, and also DFS? Is he a guy that you are interested in potentially playing?
Just this 1 week, because Tampa's passed these allowed a ton of yards.
True.
And last year when DeVito came in, you get that boost that first week. I don't think he's a long-term guy, but we'll get to the pricing. I mean, he's only $4,000, and I like the matchup at home against Tampa. I think what he is there's a lot of people on bye, and he's a great bye week fill-in second quarterback just this week is my read on him.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's fair. I think DeVito has a very good matchup this week against my Bucks. I will be there in person to Watch us hopefully pull it out.
I had a crazy fantasy dilemma last night because the waivers go through Tuesday night. I have so many people on a bye, and that's bad management by me because I've got like my whole team. I have Bills and Bengals, and they're off.
I actually think that's smart. If you have everyone on a bye and you just lose 1 week, I think that is smart management.
Well, yes, okay. So I had a really tough debate because I have a real deep receiving core, and I could have picked up DeVito to be my second quarterback this week in my flex, but I would have had to cut Amari Cooper, and I've got a team that's in the playoffs right now, and I just think there's a chance Cooper could come on, get more chemistry with Allen, and I could use him in the playoffs, and to cut him to try to win a game that is not must win for me, I was like, that would be stupid.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Just because I feel like there's a chance. I mean, Cooper had 2 for 55 last week. He'd been hurt a little bit, but him and Allen, the chemistry could come together, and he could be something down the stretch. And so I was like, I can't risk like somebody I might need in a championship run to try to win a bye week a game that I don't think is must win.
Yeah, I wanted to run something else by you. We've obviously seen a lot of surprises this fantasy season. Let me read you the top 6 quarterbacks, fantasy-wise. 4-point passing touchdown. Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen. I don't think any major surprises there. Baker Mayfield having a nice season, fits in at number 5. Jaden Daniels, number 6. And then number 7, who is a little bit behind Jaden Daniels. Who do you think quarterback 7 is?
I feel like it's going to be Bo Nix.
It is Bo Nix.
And Moody's been beating the drum for it. What's wild is you saw him play the first couple weeks, and he didn't look like he belonged on an NFL field. And to see the progression and how much he's improved is incredible.
Yeah. Honestly, an incredible run. This past week, the 4 touchdowns, no interception, 307 yards. He completed like 80% of his passes. He is just coming on in a big way, and he gives you that stable rushing threat. I know he only had 5 rushing yards this week, but we've seen him have 75-yard rushing games. He's had a 61-yard rushing game. He's had multiple games, over 25 rushing yards, which kind of provides you the stability to potentially offset any interceptions that would come. But he's been playing some clean football, and Denver is good. Denver's good. When they beat the Bucs in week 3, it was 26-7. I was concerned. I was like, Denver? Like, really? We're going to lose to Denver and Bo Nix? But it turns out that was just like the start of Denver's big run. That was their first win of the year. They reeled off 3 in a row, and now, they're in a spot where, they've won. Two-game
lead for the last wildcard spot in the AFC.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what else is a stat, and I mentioned this on Twitter Monday. Sean Payton against the NFC South. They played 4 games against his old division. Denver goes 4-0 and outscored the NFC South 125-37. Just beat the shit out of all 4 teams.
Yeah.
I mean, the closest game was 28-14 when Carolina scored with like a minute left.
Yeah.
I mean,
and that's a team with a new coach, so yeah, maybe I guess Atlanta has a new coach too, but a lot of same personnel from when he was there. Not really, actually. Kirk Cousins, Bijan. But yeah, that stat certainly holds true. That's a resounding stat. Let's talk about this week, week 12. So many bye weeks.
Yeah.
There's 6 teams on byes and a lot of heavy hitters.
Cincinnati, Buffalo. Who else on bye?
New Orleans.
Yeah, obviously. Atlanta.
Jacksonville.
Okay.
And there's one more.
I'm surprised Doug Peterson survived Monday. I thought he was going to get let go.
I don't really know what their plan is long term. All right, let's talk about these games. Thursday night's not in play. We're just talking about Classic. That game is going to be ugly. 36.5.
Weather report looks really bad for Cleveland. It's like 25, 30 mile an hour winds.
Oh, yeah.
Sleet.
It opened at 39.5 down to 35, 6.5.
Yeah, it's looking like one of those.
Sunday slate, we got Bucks Giants 41.5. Lions Colts that is going to be the biggest total of the day, 49.5. That's in Indy on that fast track, which you love.
The Indy games at home have been higher scoring for the most part, other than the Miami one.
Yep. We got Tennessee Houston 41.5. New England Miami 45.5. Dallas Washington 44.5. Big spread in that. Commanders 10.5 point favorites. Minnesota Chicago 39.5. Kansas City, Carolina. We got the Chiefs, 10.5 point favorites, 42.5. Denver, Las Vegas in an AFC West game, total 41.5. Arizona, Seattle, which was one that could get fun. 1 point line with the Seahawks being favored, 47.5. San Francisco, Green Bay in the America's Game of the Week slot. Green Bay favored by 2.5, 47.5 point total. Those are the games that are going to be in the classic. We got Philadelphia at LA Sunday night, and then Baltimore at the Chargers on Monday night. Those games are both higher, 48.5, 49.5. But overall, we're seeing a lot of lower totals with San Francisco, Green Bay, Arizona, Seattle, and then Detroit, Indy. The only games over 46 points as a projected total. Does anything stand out to you in these matchups?
Yeah, well, the Detroit Indy, that one, the floor of the over-under, I just can't see how that's not, at least in the low 40s. Maybe it ends up being a little lower scoring thing, but that one looks like an obvious target with how Detroit's playing. I mean, we saw it was a party last week at home against Jacksonville. Montgomery got in twice. Gibbs got in. Amon-Ra scored for the 8th week in a row with 161 yards. Jamison Williams is all of a sudden, that 2-game suspension, I mentioned it before the Houston game, that was a blessing for them because he had a banged-up ankle and he rested, and now when he's back 100%, he gives them a totally different element with that deep ball.
Yep.
And Indy's defense isn't very good. So I think I know Detroit, the pricing's high on a lot of those guys, but hard not to like a lot of the lines this week.
Yeah. This week is going to be interesting just because a shrunken down slate and such big differences. One thing I'd want to ask you is we saw last week, if you cashed in DFS, it's likely you had some combination of Jared Goff, David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs,
Taysom,
Amon-Ra St. Brown. Well, I'm leaning just Lions, and they had 14-point spread against Jacksonville. We have 2 games this week that are double-digit spreads. Washington 10.5 over Dallas, and then Kansas City 10.5 over Carolina. Do those, after what we saw last week, become a little bit more appealing as DFS plays for you?
The KC thing, I just don't trust. They never cover in these games. They're just going to do their thing where they do just enough to win and get out of there. So I don't know that you're going to see this we've been waiting on that Chiefs crazy 41-7 game all year, and I don't think it's coming because I don't think they feel like they have to turn that gear up. They just do enough to win. The Washington-Dallas, I don't know if I'm worried about Jaden, but he hadn't been running as much lately since that rib injury, and Philly's got a really good defense, so that makes some sense. But I feel like that Washington-Dallas game, I mean, when you see the Cowboys, all you got to do is run against them. They got the worst run D in the NFL, and so that is going to lead into our fantasy pricing here in a second on certain Mr. Robinson, who probably has some value in that game.
Yeah. Let's get into the slate and pricing. Quarterbacks, we got Jaden Daniels, 7,000. Patrick Mahomes, 6,800. Trickles down by hundreds after that. So we're not seeing a big, the top 2 guys that would be in this, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, even Jalen Hurts, not eligible. Jalen Hurts Sunday night, Lamar Monday night, Josh Allen on a bye. So we are seeing some lower pricing with quarterbacks. Again, Jaden Daniels, top of the market, 7,000. Patrick Mahomes, 68. Jordan Love, 67. Jared Goff, 66. Goes all the way down. We got bottom of the market. We got Gardner Minshew, 4,800. Bryce Young, 46. And then Tommy DeVito, 4,000. Now, we just kind of touched on him a bit. Going against the Bucs, it's going to be his first start of the year. Is this a spot where, because pricing was made before this announcement was made, he is lower? Had the news been out, he would have been, I don't think he would have been necessarily 5,000. He'd probably been right around the $4,800 to $5,000 range. Is this a spot, especially considering the matchup, where Tommy DeVito is a must-play in all lineups?
I think it must play is close, but because the value's there and Tampa's got the Tampa run D's good, but their pass D's been bad. I mean, I don't hate it at all because when you look at the top quarterbacks, none of the matchups are that good. I mean, this feels like a week when you're looking at the quarterback thing. DeVito at 4,000 looks good. Some of the other options were Tua at 5,800 at home against New England. Anthony Richardson, 5,600 at home against Detroit because he had 2 rushing touchdowns last week.
He's an interesting one.
Yeah, maybe him, but at Jared Goff, 6,600, I think there's an argument there, but I think DeVito 4,000, and then you can just stack the. If you save $3,000 at quarterback, then all of a sudden you're going to be able to get in guys like Amon-Ra St. Brown on your team.
Yeah. Do you think Bo Nix is worth riding the wave there? He's $6,300.
The Raiders matchup, the Raiders allowed Tua had a huge game against them last week, and the Broncos blew out the Raiders 38-10 in their first matchup, and he's hot. The only thing is his pricing's kind of gone up. Like a lot of the Bo thing was the value, and now. Yeah. But I think he's worth looking at, but I think I'm going to go a different direction. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, he's the 7th most expensive quarterback, which is, he's overall quarterback 8, but you're also missing, as we said, Lamar, Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen from this. So I think his pricing is still discounted. I think he's certainly worth a look. 6,300. A couple I would call out. He hasn't played well lately, but the matchup is there. He played a lot better on Sunday. Caleb Williams, $5,100. I'm not recommending that, but you did see him running a lot more and being a lot more decisive. Does that pay off in a divisional game? That's something worth looking at. The one that I would like to call out, in addition to Tommy DeVito, Will Levis. So he gets he's going against a Texans team that gives up the 2nd most passing touchdowns in the NFL.
That is a sneaky one.
Since coming back, so he came back off of injury. He's had 2 games. His averages in those 2 games: 235 yards passing, 1.5 passing touchdowns, half a pick. So he threw 2 touchdowns, 1 touchdown, and then 1 pick in one of those games. But he's running the ball, and they've talked about this in pressers for the Titans. They want to utilize his legs more, which is like he's got a Josh Allen type athletic profile. He can run the ball. He's got great size. He's quite strong. He's got a good build for it. Averaging 6 carries for 35 yards, which is huge. His rushing totals early in this year, the lines are around 12.5, 13.5 yards. I expect those to be much higher this week. If not, that's going to be a hammer play for me. So Will Levis, I think, is a solid option at quarterback.
I actually like that, what you're saying, too, because now the Titans are obviously not going anywhere, and so they're going to take a long look at him the rest of the year and see what they got while they evaluate everything. And you already mentioned that Calvin Ridley has value, and dome game against the Houston team allowing a lot of passing yards. That's not a bad. What's his price?
$4,900.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
So I think Will Levis is an option. Now, a lot of it was his stats were certainly padded last week with a 98-yard passing touchdown, but he has been objectively good over the past couple weeks. And I've been a Will Levis guy, and I said I think he will be a lot better this year. He missed a couple games with the AC joint issue. Since he's been back, he has been good. Is he worth starting in DFS this week? That might be a bit of a stretch. I'm going to take a hard look at him. I have not made my lineup yet. I'm going to take a hard look at Will Levis at that price.
Okay.
Running backs. We got Christian McCaffrey, 8,500. Joe Mixon, 8,000. Or actually, sorry, I skipped over Moody. Moody, who you got in the quarterback market?
Pretty good chance that I'm going to roll with Bo Nix once again. Obviously I've been talking about him the entire season. He was my breakout quarterback to start the year. I finished 4th with him last week, made a lot of money with Bo Nix. I think I'm probably going to go back to the well one more time just because he's playing such good football. I think they figured out what the weapons around him look like, what the usage should be for them. And Sean Payton's just a great play caller. He gets that team ready to play, and Bo Nix is playing elite football right now. I think he's going to do it once again against the Raiders. So I'm probably going to roll with Bo at 6,300. And I would have loved to play Daniel Jones if Daniel Jones would have been starting, but I don't trust Tommy DeVito. He sucks. We've seen him play before. He's not good. The only reason you would play him is because he's going to be 4K, and there may be some value there. So I will take a look at DeVito because he's 4,000, but I don't really want to go that route because I know he's not very good. And also think that the Giants inserted DeVito because Daniel Jones gave them a chance to win games, and there's no reason for the Giants to win games at this point. So I think DeVito has been inserted to make sure that they're not winning very much.
The other thing on that, too, it may be the old put some asses in the seats because DeVito's like a cult hero thing.
Yeah.
Too. It might be a ticket sales thing.
His agent, I'm sure, will reemerge this Sunday. All right, running backs, we got, of course, Christian McCaffrey, who is scoreless since he returned, $8,500. Joe Mixon, $8,000 coming off that 3-touchdown Monday night game. We got Devon Achane, $7,500. Jameer Gibbs, $7,300. Jonathan Taylor, $7,100. Then we got Kenneth Walker, $6,900. It goes down by hundreds after that. Goes all the way down. You can get Cam Akers, who scored recently at $4,400. Mincy, who stands out to you in the running back?
Okay, the running back thing. Gibbs is $7,300. It's expensive. So is Montgomery at $6,700, but I still like them both. I think you can make an argument for those. Achane even at $75. 6,500. Great value because this is full point PPR, and he's always catching
the ball. Yes,
and
they split him out wide and have him run routes, and he's catching the ball.
I kind of think Miami might be a little back here too, especially in those home games. They score a lot of points. They scored 34 at home against the Raiders. They're home against New England. It's been a little different because they're throwing to A-Chain and Jonnu Smith, and it's not so much Tyreek and Waddle. But I think they may be kind of back, and I think there might be a little value on A-Chain. So I was looking at those guys, but I was either going to go Gibbs or Montgomery. The value guy I love, I mentioned a minute ago, Brian Robinson, 5,600 against the just dog shit Dallas run defense.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I just think he could get in the end zone once, maybe even twice, and run for 100 yards. So 5,600, I think he's a total must play this week.
Yeah. I'm not as high on the more expensive guys. I think we saw the best of Joe Mixon on Monday night. He's going to be on a short week now. McCaffrey certainly has an interesting matchup, and if you can afford him, I think Christian McCaffrey is always going to be worth it, assuming he's playing, which this week he will be. One guy I want to point out, Tyrone Tracy Jr. He's going against my Buccaneers, but this is a game that could get out of hand. This guy played receiver in college. For most of his time there, he played 1 year of running back. The Bucs give up the third most catches to running backs in the NFL, the most this week on the DFS slate, and they give up the most receiving yards to running backs. Tyrone Tracy hasn't caught a ton of balls with the Giants, but with a new quarterback in, I would look for Tyrone Tracy Jr. to have a decent game against my Bucs. Not necessarily rushing the ball, but all-purpose yards. I think he is a solid value at 6,000, and he's been kind of a bell cow when he's been in there for the Giants. As of late, but I like Tyrone Tracy Jr. at 6,000.
Yeah, I like that too. I kind of like the over in that 41.5. As long as it's early on, so we don't know weather stuff yet, but I actually think that game could be a little higher scoring than people think.
Yeah. Moody, who do you like in the running backs?
And the running backs, I agree about Tracy, by the way. I think he's primed for a big week. $6K feels a little expensive for him, but I do think he's in line for a pretty good showing against the Bucs. My number one guy this week is going to be Kenneth Walker III against Arizona. Arizona, 21st against the run. With all the other games looking very low scoring, I feel like Arizona, Seattle has a chance to be a higher scoring affair. Look, NFC West, it's on the line essentially for these two teams in a way. So I think that Seattle's going to show up and play very good here, and I think Kenneth Walker III will be the reason that they end up winning this game. I think he's going to have a monster performance against Arizona. And then the other guy that I liked is Jahmyr Gibbs at 7,300, but he's obviously very expensive. I will try and find a way to fit Gibbs into my lineup on the turf against Indianapolis if I can find the money.
Yeah. I was burned last week thinking that Seattle, San Francisco was going to be very high scoring. It was not. But hopefully that turns around for this week. Receivers. Amon-Ra St. Brown, who scored in, is it 8 straight weeks or 7?
Yeah, it's 8 weeks? Now. He led the NFL with 161 yards receiving last week.
Yeah, he sets the top of the market, 8,300. We got Justin Jefferson, 8,100. Big drop down to Nico Collins at 7,600. Malik Neighbors, 74, going against my Bucs, and then goes down by hundreds pretty much after that. You can go all the way down to Kevontae Turpin is 3,300. Marvin Mims, 32. Mecole Hardman, 31. Is there anyone that stands out to you receiver-wise this week?
Well, so I think this week, first of all, if you got the money for Amon-Ra, we're at a point where the consistency, the floor is just so high with him. He gets the target share. He scores every week. If you got the money and you do the DeVito thing or the Will Levis thing, I think I'd rather pay for Amon-Ra than McCaffrey. Yeah. I think there's a lot of arguments to be made there. Value hunting-wise, first of all, like I said, I mentioned the Jameson Williams thing with him back healthy, 6,000. I like that just because daily fantasy, this isn't a head-to-head matchup. You're looking for guys that can really bust out. Mm-hmm. And he had, well over 100 yards and a touchdown last week, and he looked good in the Houston game even though Goff struggled. Yeah. So I think him at 6,000 has value. Some other value guys. He's never healthy, so you got to enjoy it when he's healthy. Christian Watson right now, 150 yards last week. He's $5,200. His target share is way up in that offense right now. And That's over-under is like hot 47.5. I think him at 5,200 has got value. He caught a long – the thing with Watson's value is he's good on those deep balls down the field. He caught a really long one last week. If they're taking those deep shots, I like that value. And then another guy I want to mention, I think Xavier Worthy's getting worked into the offense more. It seems like they were targeting him more. He's 5,000 against Carolina, who stinks. But, watching the game last week, he definitely is getting more targets, and they're trying to go to him more as the season comes on, which makes sense because so often with rookies – we all get hyped up at the beginning of the year, but the adjustment to the NFL is so much, and then you see him emerge later in the year, and I think that might be happening with him. So he's another one I'm looking at.
Yeah. It's hard to argue top of the market. I'm on St. Brown, 8,300. Justin Jefferson, 8,100. A guy I would point out, returning from injury this week, expected to. Mike Evans, $7,000. He is, so we got, let's see, we are 4-6. So we got 7 games left. His pursuit of 1,000 yards is a huge storyline in Tampa. If he does it this year, it would be his 11th straight year doing it. It would tie the record for Jerry Rice. This is an important record to him. He's talked about it before. The team has talked about it before. They also have nobody on the outside. I'm talking Sterling Shepard is probably their top guy. Trey Palmer, Raheem Jarrett. It is Jalen McMillan has been, has flashed, but hasn't been very good lately. They don't have a lot of receiver help on the outside. K. Dotton has been very good at tight end, and their running backs can catch the ball, but they don't have a guy on the boundary that can threaten at all. And he brings that. He is $7,000. For him to reach 1,000 yards in the final 7 games, he's going to need to average 95 yards a game. He's at 335 yards right now. So I think there's going to be – this is a huge game for the Bucs. They're not out of the division race just yet. They're 4-6. They're a game behind Atlanta. Atlanta will own the tiebreaker against them. So they're essentially 2 games back or a game and a half back. He is going to get the ball a lot. And I think at $7,000, I think he is fairly priced. I think that has been worked in. But I do think against the Giants team, he's going to get the ball. And I think he's going to be a play the rest of the season for me. If he's in season long, he is a trade target for me just because I do think that they are going to try and get him the ball enough to get to that 1,000-yard mark. So Mike Evans is one I'm going to look at. DJ Moore, it's tough just because the Bears offense has been so bad, but they do get a Minnesota offense that gives up a ton of yards to opposing wide receivers, number 3 in the league. So he is one I would look at. Josh Downs also one I would look at.
Yeah.
He's been very hot lately. Anthony Richardson's so streaky.
Yeah,
but the Lions give up the second most yards to wide receivers in the NFL. Downs is $6,200. Very similar to Jackson Smith-Njigba, who's also been very hot at $6,300. So I think if you're looking for a mid-tier guy, one of those guys could certainly fill that role. Moody, who do you like at the receiver position?
So I am calling for a Tyreek Hill breakout against New England this week. The Dolphins are at home. Every single week their season is on the line. New England is bottom 10 against the pass, and I just think this is the spot for Tyreek to finally break out. I mean, beginning of the season, we were paying, $8,500, $8,600 for Tyreek. He's all the way down to $7,200. So I'm getting a player with elite talent, below value, essentially. I think Tyreek Hill has his best performance of the season this week. I've got him as my number 1 wide receiver. Also, I'm looking at Marvin Harrison Jr., another guy that had a lot of hype coming into this season that has not lived up to the hype. Again, I think that Seattle game is going to be a bit of a shootout. I like Marvin Harrison Jr. And then my value play at the wide receiver position is the same guy that I called out last week. It's Devon Vela. He got in the end zone, had 5 catches, 66 yards, and a touchdown. I mean, I think he's going to continue to emerge in this offense for the Broncos, and he's coming in at $3,900. He's my value play this week for Denver.
I love that. All right, let's move on to tight ends. We got tight end 1, Brock Bowers, leading the way, $6,300. Incredible 13 catches last week. Coming off the bye, he looks to be healthy. George Kittle, who missed last week, but apparently was pretty close to playing. Big America's Game of the Week matchup against Green Bay, $6,000. Travis Kelce, bit of a no-show last week, $5,800. Trey McBride, $5,600. K-Dot, $55, and then it goes down from there. You can get all the way down to Cheah Okonkwo at $2,800. Mincy, who stands out to you?
This is one of those things because it's always kind of suckery, fishy, like riding the wave from last week because you're behind, which is Watson too. But I mean, just what I've watched out of Miami the last 2 weeks, I just think Jonnu Smith at 4,100 still value. I know he's going to be honed off that game last week is my only concern.
Yep.
But I've watched a lot of those two guys. I watched the whole Monday night game and a lot of Sunday, and he's just getting the targets. And the thing is, there's so few tight ends that can really run after the catch, and he can. He's like a dude that can bust a 30 or 40-yarder, and that's not a common thing with tight end. And I kind of think Miami's back. I think they're going to score a bunch of points against New England, so I'm rolling there.
Yeah. I think if you can spend the money, I think Brock Bowers is worth every penny. He is going against a Denver defense that is pretty good. K-Dotton is also one I'd look at 5,500 again, speaking to the Bucs' lack of passing weapons, even with Mike Evans back. Like, Mike Evans is not going to catch 20 passes, so somebody else needs to get that work in. I think he is a guy. One I would look at pretty hardly and in the bargain bin, Jatavion Sanders, $3,400. They are coming off of a bye, and recently he has been good. Past couple of weeks, going back to week 6, 7 targets, 5 catches, 49 yards, 6 targets, 6 catches, 61 yards. Then he had a bit of a clunker, 1 target, 1 catch, 7 yards, but then 5 targets, 4 catches, 87 yards. Week 10, 2 targets, 2 catches, 8 yards, but scored. So Jatavion Sanders coming off a bye. Carolina obviously not going anywhere in the long term. 6'4", he's 252 pounds, a fast guy. He's a young guy. He's developing a rapport with Bryce Young. And at $3,400, if you're looking to save some money, I think he is a good option.
Chiefs haven't been the best against tight ends either.
Yes, no, Chiefs have been terrible against tight ends. They give up the most catches and the most yards by a lot, 6.5 catches per game to tight ends, next highest 6.2, 74.3 receiving yards to tight ends, next highest 68.4. So
on the alternate yard, the DraftKings, the alternate yardage stuff, the Sanders thing, maybe over 60 or 70 yards at like 8 or 10 to 1, maybe a flyer here.
Yeah, certainly worth an option. He's playing on Monday night, but just for long season fantasy. Will Dissly's been coming on lately.
I actually started him in one of my leagues last week when Kincaid was hurt, and he's looking really, really good.
Yeah. Moody, who do you like for DFS at the tight end position?
So my favorite guy at the tight end position is going to be Trey McBride at 5,600. To be honest with you, he's been the most consistent tight end of anyone in the NFL. I mean, every single week he's putting up double-digit performances. He has a couple 20-point games this season. I've already mentioned that I think this Seattle-Arizona game is going to be a shootout. If it is, I think Trey McBride will be a big reason that it is a high-scoring game. I love him at 5,600. He's probably my favorite play of the entire week. So Trey McBride at 5,600 is my number one tight end play.
He's been 53 yards or more in 5 of his last 6 games. Yeah, Trey McBride is certainly a solid option, a guy a lot of us hoped at the beginning of the year he would be. All right, defense, special teams. We got the Chiefs going against the aforementioned Panthers, top of the market, $3,900. We got the Lions, $3,700. Texans, $36, goes down by hundreds by there. The cheapest are going to be the Panthers going against the Chiefs. Mintzy, who stands out to you on defense?
A bunch of options, but I went Broncos 3,200 against the Raiders. The Broncos defense has been John Gruden, great Barstool coworker John Gruden. The anonymous crush is all. They've been awesome. What they did to come in, Atlanta has a good offense. They scored 6 points, and Cousins didn't even play in the fourth. Playing a Raiders team that struggled to score. The first game in this matchup, Broncos won 38-10 and had Patrick Surtain had a 99-yard pick six. I think the Broncos are a good play here at 3,200.
Yeah. Moody, who you like on defense?
Yeah, I was going to go with Denver as well. Another team that I'm going to look at is probably Green Bay once again. I know I say them so often, but San Francisco's been turning the football over much more than we've seen in the past with Brock Purdy. So Purdy is definitely taken a step back as to where he was, and I think the Packers may be able to turn him over a couple times in this game. So Green Bay is somebody I'm looking at as well, but I'm probably going to be in the same boat as Mintz and go with Denver at 3,200.
Two I would look at. If you want to get contrary and you want to fade the Tommy DeVito angle and not play him at quarterback, you think he's going to have a bad game. The Bucs at 3,300, coming off a bye, not a terrible option. The Bears, $2,500, divisional game against Minnesota, who have struggled without Christian Darrisaw. is a bargain option I would consider if you have the money. I think the Lions at 3,700 are the top option against Anthony Richardson, who, he produces highlight-worthy plays. We saw the, big throw to Josh Downs early. Earlier in the year, he had, one of the most incredible throws you'll ever see. I believe it was to Alec Pierce for a touchdown. Very, very good player, but he also has some easy misses. He's missing, on 3rd and 2, 2-yard pass right in front of his face to a wide-open receiver. So I think the Lions are an option because if they get ahead, we saw last week, they can just beat the shit out of teams. So they're an option at 3,700. All right, let's go plant your flag guy of the week. This is the guy you're going to rock with in all your lineups, no matter what. And while we're going to give it out, you hope nobody else does. But this is the guy you're standing on business for. Minzy, who do you guys are plant your flag guy of the week?
I feel like it's been Taysom Hill so many times, but this week he's off. I love that you always save your plant your flag for the end, and I always accidentally say it before, but I'm going Brian Robinson at 5,600. I'm telling you, this Dallas run defense, every week somebody's over 100.
Yeah.
And when you look at where the Commanders are right now with Jaden being banged up, he's not running around the goal line anymore. He hadn't had a rushing touchdown in a while. I think Brian Robinson could get to 100 yards and with 1 to 2 touchdowns. And at 5,600, we're planting the flag against the dog shit Dallas run D.
Moody, who do you got as your plant your flag guy of the week?
So my flag guy is going to be Trey McBride. I just mentioned a moment ago how consistent he has been this entire season. I just think he's going to have in line for a massive game here. He is the security blanket for Kyler Murray. I think Kyler is going to look his way a lot. He's averaging almost 14 points per game at the tight end position. That is huge this season when everybody else has been in the single digits on average. To see a guy that's been that consistent, I think he's in line for one of, if not his best week of the year as well against Seattle. So give me Trey McBride at 5,600 as my plant my flag play of the week.
I'm also going to go with somebody in that game. Probably not one you might expect, though. I'm going with backup running back Trey Benson, $4,500. Past 2 weeks, he's averaging 9 carries, 1.5 catches a game, 71 total yards. He scored in one of those games. I think at $4,500 at the running back position, he is a very good value. He gets a Seahawks defense that gives it the 3rd most rushing yards a game. And we've seen him just kind of get more into the flow. I believe he had a 7-carry game and an 11-carry game. So Trey Benson, I think, is getting more work into that rotation. He's a rookie, getting more work into that rotation with James Conner. And I think he's got a favorable matchup. So I think, running and catching the ball, I think Trey Benson gives you versatility. And I think at $4,500, he's a really great value. I'm going to put him in my lineup this week.
Well, Cheah, your plant your flag thing has been just literally fuego on this thing, so I will be putting that on my radar. And I like the Benson thing. In the rookie vein, you see rookies emerge second half of the year. James Conner's older. Benson's getting worked in more and more, and so his usage should continue to go up as the Arizona makes its playoff run.
I spent a lot. I'm in a keeper league, a season-long league, and I picked him up off waivers. I was shocked he was available. I think he's an absolute must pick up if you got a keeper league. Like he's gonna be very good. James Conner's not gonna live in the NFL forever. And I think Trey Benson, they obviously drafted him high. He's going to have a bright future. He's a good player. But all right, that's going to wrap it up for week 12 for the King of South Mincy. For Moody on the Sticks, I'm Stephen Cheah. Hopefully see you in the winner's circle this week. Remember, PMT.
Yeah, Moody's leading the season long PMT thing too, and got 4th last week. So Moody's
you got 4th?
Yeah, and he yanked Taysom Hill out of his lineup and still got 4th.
So I got 4th in the PMT league. I had Taysom Hill in there, and I took him out. I went with Dalton Kincaid, who I gave out on the show. Had I left in Taysom Hill, not only would I have won the PMT league, I would have made a lot more money than I did. I still had a very solid week. I made just over 1,000 last week off like $50 worth of entries, which is pretty damn good. But guys, I could have had a monster week if I just would have left Taysom in there. I made a small mistake. I had him in and I took him out, and it cost me quite a bit of money. But hey, listen, it was a win. I had another good week. But yeah, it sucks knowing what could have been, because I was in one league that I would have outscored the guy that made like 10 grand. So it hurts, boys. It hurts. But I'll tell you what,
especially because you've been one of the biggest Taysom Hill roadies all year too. That's the one.
Every week. And I had him in every week. And I pulled him out. because I was trying to make my lineup fit. But what I would have done is I would have taken Taysom out and switched Jawan Jennings for somebody that got like 15 points instead of 26. So I would have missed that 11, but I would have got the 40 or whatever for Taysom Hill. That would have put me over the top. And so It is what it is. It hurts, but it's good to know that I feel like I'm on the right track. And one thing that I talked about last week is I'm going to start stacking more. I wasn't stacking enough early on in the season. Last week was my first week to really stack a potential matchup, and it led me to my best week of the season. So I'm going to start looking at that moving forward a little bit more.
And if you like a guy, go with your gut. You don't have to spend all your money in your wallet. You could, and that's what it's there for, but you don't have to spend it all. If you have $800 lying around and you like the guys in your lineup, roll with that. If you got $200, that's fine too. All right. Best of luck. Listen to Moody. He's obviously crushing it. And we'll see you guys next week.